Games Workshop is workshopping their games again. Hi, so come on in, Vampire is inviting you in. We were just talking about the Games Workshop datasheet changes, and what they're going to do with datasheets in the future. This is something that people have picked up on more recently when Games Workshop announced on their community that the Tau Battlesuit unit is going to get split up into 3 kinds of Tau Battlesuit units. Now this is nothing new. Datasheets getting split apart and reforged, and some stay the same, others don't. For many, many editions, the different kinds of Land Raider have had their own profiles and unit cards despite basically being exactly the same. The Gladiator flying Space Marine tanks are separate datasheets because they have slightly different weapons, so they get slightly different abilities. The 3 not land speeders that are definitely land speeders, but they get different unit cards depending on their role in the battlefield. Oh, and the Black Templars also have their own version of the Space Marine Gladiator tank, so you could have 6 of what is the same kind of tank in your army, and you could use any Space Marine Codex detachment or the Black Templar detachment. There's good and bad points with breaking up a datasheet into 3 different datasheets, or more datasheets, or 6 datasheets, or 2 datasheets, whatever. The point is, a unit gets split up. So we'll focus on the good things first. It will allow in 10th edition for the points to reflect the unit. The people taking Tau Crisis Battlesuits were all taking the same kind of weapon. If you had burst cannons and flamers, now there is a dedicated unit which is going to have its own points cost for those weapons. So you can take your flamers and burst cannons and know that you're not overpaying for what you're getting. Having different datasheets with the different weapons lets the unit specialize, and their unit card special rule will help them to do the thing that they're meant to be doing. So if the Imperial Guard Heavy Weapon Squad got broken up into several different datasheets, then a unit that's all mortars could have some kind of suppressing bombardment, similar to the Basilisk but not as good as the Basilisk, while anti-tank teams with missile launchers and las cannons could have a rule that helps them defeat larger creatures, and a unit with heavy weapons that have the heavy bolters and the autocannons, they can still be providing the close fire support. Otherwise, at the moment, those heavy weapon teams, the mortars are quite popular, but then the special rule is almost never taken, because you won't have the mortars so far back and using indirect fire. So Acolytes, Acolyte Hybrids, in theory they are the main datasheet I want to focus on as I'm recording this while within Genestealer Cult Week, or Fortnite. The demolition charges have a very different tactic to the mining tools. So the demolition charges are one-shot shooting, and the other is very violent combat. Having separate units with different rules is a good solution. You're no longer points forced to take the demolition charges, so you can use all of your models that have mining weapons and not feel that you're overpaying for them. I have thought that the Genestealer cult needed some kind of dedicated sabotage bombing squad with little regard for their own life, hazardous weapons, since before Genestealer cult was reintroduced into 40k in 7th edition and I was having fun with fan indexes and old hybrid models. Then we got the Reductor Saboteur, so I was like, yeah, okay, that niche is filled. But having a datasheet that is just for demolitions, and having a separate datasheet that is all of the claws and the mining tools, that could work. That's how I was feeling them in 9th edition. One unit of 5 pops up, throws demo charges, dies. The other unit is the one that does the killing and the objective taking. Very different roles. It currently seems like it's a negotiation. Genestealer cult fans saying, okay, if we can't have separate points for demolition charges, then could you please make them separate units? And Games Workshop seems to be going with, yeah, okay, separate units, we can do that. We've sort of seen the same thing happening across the Space Marine range. A tactical squad, which has some guys with bolt guns, a flamer and a missile launcher, has become Intercessors, Desolation Marines, and Infernus Marines. A unit for every weapon. I don't like that, but you might think it's good and cool. But how far do we go when we're splitting up units? It is feasible to split up Acolyte units even further, and have a unit that is all pistols and claws only, or have a unit that's pistols and claws but those pistols are hand flamers. Kill Team has them separate depending on if they have auto pistols or the hand flamers. And like in the Overkill box, like Games Workshop may do again as a combat patrol, there could be a unit that's just pistols and claws. I mean, they've already done that, and that unit is called Hybrid Metamorphs. So maybe the Acolytes are a bad example to go even further with it, but you could get very silly very quickly. You have enough lasguns in the unit box to give all 10 Cadians lasguns. Will a Cadian rifle squad get its own unit card? I do expect Games Workshop is going to be sensible about this, and it will be targeted to certain builds. But just for my own casual enjoyment, not for a video or anything, I went through the Space Marine Codex and found that I would only keep 40% of the current unit sheets, partly by just combining 3 very similar units into the one. We already have a Dreadnought. That Dreadnought can already have las cannons and missile launchers. It can already have a big fist and a big gun. Why do we need 4 unit cards to represent this one unit? Well, Games Workshop can sell more, and having their own special name makes them identifiable as a build and gives the community language we can use. This is the Brutalis build, or Brutalis Dreadnought. This is the one we got in the Leviathan box. That build, yeah! But Games Workshop, for the Tau, are taking old fan names from old forums and now applying them to the game. Now that can show that Games Workshop listens and then potentially watches videos on YouTube about them. I'm a vampire. I am very serious. Talk about Warhammer. So Games Workshop does listen to the community, but then takes the idea and puts a little TM next to it. But I'm putting this in the good pile. It means that we know that Games Workshop was looking at things and seeing how a lot of Tau players were running their battlesuits. I have never fought against a Tau army that didn't have all of the battlesuits running exactly the same weapons. So when most players were running them like that anyway, it's not really a bad thing for the Tau players if it then gets split up into dedicated rules-specific units with those weapons. Genestealer Cult players have been asking about demo charge only acolytes in 9th edition. And in 8th, 9th and 10th edition I have had separate demo charge and mining weapon units, but now I have enough of each to mix them, with the changed unit sizes going from a maximum of 20 in 8th edition, a maximum of 15 in 9th edition, a maximum of 10 in 10th edition. Oh boy, I wonder what the max unit size will be in 11th edition. So, we'll move on to the bad stuff. You may have noticed that this section of the video is bigger than the section where it's good. Read into that what you will, but I'm trying to stay objective and not just scream. So what if you're a Tau player, or a Genestealer Cult player, and you have, or whatever kind of player, and you have mixed units? You have some battlesuits with the fusion thingy. Look, they're all Tau weird guns to me, I don't know all their names, but you have one of them, and you also have another one with one of them, and this is your unit. What happens then? What happens if you don't have enough Imperial Guard mortars to make a squad entirely of mortars? What if you don't have enough demo charges for a unit alone? What if you have some flamers, some melters, and you want a versatile crisis suit team? You know, the thing they're meant to be in the lore. Well, you get a Legends datasheet. That's what happens to those units. This is fine for me, I don't mind. But some players are in clubs that refuse to allow you to take Legend units. Their voices will get suddenly very high-pitched and say that's illegal, or refuse to play because it wouldn't accurately reflect a real tournament game. Now I imagine that those same people shout at the kids on the street playing football, not because of claims of antisocial behaviour or anything like that, but because they're not playing an FA Cup rule-accepted number of players or on a grassy pitch of the correct size. So some people care about Legends, others don't. While I'm still happy with Legends, if you entered 10th edition with a full White Scars bike army supported by thematic land speeders and were ready to take them to a grand tournament, you will have hated having 95% of your army now sent to Legends and the tournament's not accepting you. So to cut myself off on Legends before I pull out the soapbox, I like Legends and I don't think 40k should be played as a competitive sport. Okay, something I put in the bad. With the units being 3 separate datasheets for the Tau crisis suits, this means you can have what was before 3 crisis suit units in your army. Now you can have 9 crisis suit units in your army. That's like 30 crisis suits. That's an army. Oops, all crisis suits. This could be fun, or it could be really not fun. In 10th edition we already have Oops, all Lehman Russ tanks, and 2 factions that can go Oops, all super heavies, and that can be very much a either my army can deal with it, or there is no chance I can manage. Now I want to point out how some units have different weapons, but they do not need to be split into two separate units with different rules. The Castigator. It is perfect. I mean, it's no exorcist, but as a datasheet, it is perfect. It specifies the rule that you get based on the gun. And since we can have a lot of the special rules baked into the weapon profile, you can have a pretty generic unit special rule. It's not necessarily the answer. Just having more general, easy to use datasheets with good rules in themselves should be enough. And splitting a unit into two others is not always going to be the answer. Look at the Exorcist. One of the missiles is anti-infantry, the other is anti-tank. When I thought about the conflagration missiles, I thought, okay, it should be strength 5, 2d6 plus 6 shots, blast and ignores cover. And when I looked at the unit, it wasn't far off. The reason no one takes the conflagration missiles is not down to its rules or its points. It could be 50 points fewer than the Exorcist missile launcher and still wouldn't get taken. Sisters have anti-infantry weapons, but we lack anti-tank. Since the Exorcist, or a form of the Exorcist, can have strength 10 missiles, that gets taken. The fault is not with the datasheet, but is a wider army problem. So if Games Workshop split the Exorcist unit in half, the Conflagration Exorcist is still not going to see play no matter how good or specialized its unit special rule is. I am looking at this and generally seeing that Games Workshop is trying to fix a problem that they caused in 10th edition. When points are removed, units had to become optimized at all but the most casual or narrative of levels. Otherwise you are far underpowered for a game and not a suitable challenge for your opponent. We want points back. It doesn't have to be the 8th edition points with loads of options. The end of 9th edition with a couple of options costing more points is enough. Making different datasheets for different units tries to balance it with special rules and points separate. Again, it tries to reintroduce variable points without reintroducing points. Ideally, the profiles would all balance, with each of them having specializations or benefits compared to drawbacks and benefits of others. So a Weber would be as valuable as a Flamer, as valuable as a grenade launcher. But this gets very hard to do without having a Thunderhammer with a different profile in each unit. You know, kinda like the Death Watch, but there are different profiles within the same unit. For very similar kinds of weapons. Thunderhammers compared to Thunderhammers. I just prefer points. But I'm happy to go with group consensus on this, and we'll put up a YouTube community poll with a binary choice, good or bad. If you are subscribed to the channel, then you'll see that. The comments on this video will let you be more articulate than just having a, oh, this is a divine idea, or it's the equivalent of eating babies. You know, like we're playing a moral choice game. I also have a Ko-fi, you can give me money, thanks. So now that we have another issue or solution to the issue that comes from the points changing, if you want to see me climb on my soapbox and talk about the many other points issues in 40k 10th edition, this is the video for you to listen to next. Have a great day.